I want to talk media now. You study out in the last few days looking at our aversion to or attraction to the news media. And it's the headline of the survey is more New Zealanders turning off the news more than almost anywhere else, any comparable country in the world. But it's a really interesting survey, statistical survey. It also says we're actually more interested in the news than a lot of other places in the world. So what is going on here? And, of course, I'm interested in the media, and you are too, and you're obviously interested in good media because you're listening to the platform. But I thought we'd talk to one of the authors of this research, Alex Beattie, who's a lecturer in media and communications at Victoria University of Wellington, which also has a Maori name. Alex, welcome to the program. Lovely to have you with us.
Hi, Sean. Thanks for having me.
All right. Firstly, in a nutshell, tell us what your survey was looking at.
So this phenomenon of news avoidance has been increasingly studied around the world, but as per usual, New Zealand's not included in these studies, so we wanted to change that. So we ran a survey that asked over 1,200 people whether they avoided the news, the degree to which they avoided the news, the reasons why, and along with some demographic questions.
All right. Okay. Now, let's just define, though, in my own head, what do you mean by avoiding the news?
Well, that's a great question, Sean, because there is some kind of ambiguity. So it usually means the intentional turning away from the news, so scrolling past headlines, turning off the 6 o'clock news, avoiding the newspaper. But it can also mean unintentional avoidance, which is where you're not going out of your way to avoid the news, you're just simply consuming something else. Like
and so this is like the news comes on the day, turn that crap off.
I would say that's a great example of news avoidance. Yes.
All right. Okay, so you surveyed 1,200 people, and there's similar surveys done around the world, and what did you find?
Well, we found that our rates of news avoidance are really high, possibly the highest in the world, at least in any country that's been involved in this research. So We found that 60% of people avoid the news at least sometimes, often or almost always, and that's higher than any other country.
Wow, that's quite a result. Look, can I also ask, because I want to get context in my head, how did you define the news?
Well, you've raised a good point about surveys, and with a survey, you give people a concept and they just have to stick to your concept, whereas if you interview people, they can kind of tell you what they think about that term. So we just relied on people's interpretation of the news. So we're talking about the mainstream news, if we can use that term.
Well, that's maybe where I was subtly, or not so subtly going. Yeah. I wonder if people are, I'm now worried people are avoiding the platform, but I don't consider the platform to be the news.
Well, we did ask people in some of our other questions whether they avoid the platform or where do they get their sources from. Yeah. And we did get some interesting information about who accesses the platform and who avoids the platform.
And hey, come on. I should be paying you for this. No, that's a silly thing to put in your head. What did you find out about the platform then?
We found that people that lean left-wing tend to avoid the platform, and people that would lean politically conservative enjoy the platform.
Well, you didn't say right-wing. You said politically conservative.
Well, I've heard that no one likes a label, right, Sean? And I've heard that right-wing can annoy some people.
Okay, but you're happy to say left-wing?
Well, yes,
woke.
I guess I am.
You say politically conservative and woke, they're two asses of the same cheek.
Yeah.
Okay, that doesn't surprise me. Were we lumped in as a news organisation, though?
What's that? Sorry, can you repeat that?
Was the platform lumped in as a news organisation?
I think when we just asked the question, where do you get your news from? What's your preferred sources? You were listed as an option alongside all the other media that we have. Damn
it, I'm mainstream. I hate that.
Well, you've been around for a while now.
60% avoidance is a big number, though. That really is. And not as high as mistrust in legacy media, which in this country I think runs at 77% at present. I guess the question we have to ask, and I know that some of the reportage I've read, some of the news I've read about your work, you speculate as to why this might be. Why do you think it is that number is so high?
Well, I think on one level it just speaks to the sheer volume of media that one can access these days. You know, in the space of a couple of decades, just think how much the media landscape has changed. It's transformed. And so high rates of news avoidance on one level just speaks to the fact that no one wants to be jacked in the whole time.
Yeah.
And we do appreciate taking a break. So I think it just speaks to that on one level. And on another level, because there's so much choice and there's so much variety, I think people are developing opinions on which ones they like and which ones they don't like. And it speaks to the kind of variety of, you know, liberal, conservative, and all the other types of media that's out there.
Yeah, but you've got to say that rejection is largely... did you differentiate between New Zealand local news media and overseas media, for example? And if we're avoiding it, where are we getting our news? How do we know what's going on in the bloody world if 60% of us are trying to avoid organisations that would purport to tell us what's happening in the world?
That's right. We didn't ask that, and maybe we should have, and I'd like to do more research and actually speak to people, and I could ask that. But I think what we do know is that people are tending to get their news more from social media. Yeah. Or a lot of people have this mentality called the news finds me, so rather than actively seeking it out, there's just this expectation that if it's newsworthy, it will come to you via the algorithm.
Well, through the osmosis of social media and the interconnected world, I'll find out about it. It's not a bad philosophy. Right. It's not a bad philosophy.
I think a lot of people, believe it.
Yeah. Have you postulated, or would you entertain the theory, which I'm going to put to you, is that 60% of people are avoiding, and I'm going to argue, and I don't know if your research bears this out, 60% of people at least are avoiding what we would call legacy or mainstream media, and we'll just be sitting down while I suggest... because it's rubbish, Alex, and they have been bought off by the government and they've abandoned the basic first principles and tenets of good journalism.
I don't know if I can completely agree, but I appreciate your perspective. I think what the number one reason why people avoid the news, at least to our survey, is because of negativity, and the news makes them feel depressed. The second highest reason was because of the perception of bias or mistrust. So,
yeah. Well, there we go.
A large number of people don't trust the media, particularly those that are leaning politically conservative, or I'll say it, are right-wing.
And that's because the mainstream media in New Zealand is largely a bunch of left wokies.